Today on Legally Yes, Andy Cohen fires back at Leah McSweeney while Meghan Markle wins her defamation case against her half-sister. Plus, Kim and Kroy are getting a parental fitness evaluator. We've got that plus so much more on today's Legally Yes. Hey everyone, and welcome to Legally Yes. I'm Christina. That's Neama Rahmani, President and CEO of West Coast Trial Lawyers. Hey Neama, how are you?
Amazing, Christina. How about you?
I am doing good, and Andy Cohen is still in the news, and his lawyers are firing back and claiming that former Real Housewives of New York star Leah McSweeney's lawsuit against him is littered with false, offensive, and defamatory statements. So his lawyer sent a letter to her legal team demanding they retract the allegations relating to his alleged cocaine use and said it was categorically false. Now, in her suit, Leah alleged in part that Andy engaged in cocaine use with various members of the Real Housewives franchise and other Bravo stars. The attorney also addressed McSweeney's legal team head-on, saying she filed for maximum tabloid clickbait in value in hopes of weaponizing these false allegations as leverage to force an unjustified settlement. They added, it will not. Instead, this conduct only subjects you and your client to independent and substantial legal exposure and pressure in an attempt to force a settlement. Well, their attorney fired back and said Mr. Cohen's attempt to discredit and intimidate Ms. McSweeney to deter her from engaging in legally protected activity in court is exactly the type of retaliation that this lawsuit was brought to address and only is further evidence for Ms. McSweeney. So what do we make of all of this? Her lawyer also spoke out today and said that there will be more lawsuits coming forward and that the women that have defended Andy are the ones that are still on Bravo right now.
Christina, a lot going on. And we've seen lawyers say all sorts of things and letters going back and forth. But Leah's lawyers are right in that whatever is in the lawsuit, it's protected. It's privileged. It can't be the basis of a defamation suit. But sometimes lawyers do things not for the courtroom, but for the court of public opinion. And that's what's happening here. Now, Andy's lawyers may have one good argument, though, and that's related to the cocaine use. For an allegation to be a part of a lawsuit, it has to be relevant to the case. And of course, Leah is alleging sexual harassment. It's really unclear what cocaine use has to do with that. So if a judge finds that it's not relevant, it's scandalous, it can be stricken from the complaint. But that doesn't mean the rest of the complaint won't go forward.
What do you make of all of these housewives coming forward, defending Andy? Is this obviously probably a bit beneficial for him, or does this not even play into any of this?
It's not really relevant. This isn't a case that's going to be decided based on Andy Cohen's character. It's really, did he sexually harass Leah? And, what happened, during that, phone call or FaceTime or whatever interaction was where he made the sexually inappropriate comments that he admitted to. And, we are seeing obviously people defend Andy, but we're also seeing a lot of lawsuits against Bravo. Now, they haven't necessarily been against Andy Cohen, but we're seeing a lot of litigation recently. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see others come forward as well.
Right. And she said that she was basically forced into drinking and things like that. So if more women come forward that are no longer on the show, is this really going to be kind of like a snowball effect, do you think, that we're going to see a lot more people come forward?
Potentially, yeah. So the sexual harassment is an incident that really just applies to Andy and Leah, and obviously any others that were present. But if you do see a pattern or practice of, NBC Universal and, Shed Media and any other production company that they're pushing talent to drink, so they become belligerent and there's drama on the show, that may potentially be a problem. And if they retaliate and terminate and kick them off the show, if they don't, well, that may be the basis of a lawsuit. So we'll see if other people support that allegation, because that's something that could be supported by other witnesses that do decide to come forward.
Right. What do you think of Andy's lawyer saying that she basically did this lawsuit for maximum clickbait, or maybe like the cocaine use made headlines for maximum clickbait? Do you think that was a strategy made by Leah's team?
It is. And litigation is about leverage, and sometimes bad publicity is leverage. Obviously, Andy Cohen wants to keep a squeaky clean image, even when he is talking to the different actors and actresses on these reality TV shows, he tries to rise above the fray, right? He's not the one who's actually involved. So now that he's being dirtied up a little bit by Leah, I think that's something that has to harm his reputation. So he's going on the offense because sometimes that's the best defense.
All right, moving on over to Meghan Markle. This is a story we haven't talked about in a while, but it's finally come to a conclusion. So a Florida judge permanently dismissed Samantha Markle's defamation lawsuit against Meghan. The case was dismissed with prejudice after Samantha failed to produce statements that could support a claim for defamation. In court documents obtained by Entertainment Tonight, United States District Judge in the Middle District of Florida ruled in favor of Meghan, throwing out the case in an order stating the court grants the motion to dismiss in full. Samantha Markle's claims will be dismissed. Surprise. I mean, I feel like we said before that she didn't really have the evidence, even though that she was in her complaint, she was saying that in the book Finding Freedom, the Netflix series Harry and Meghan, that they spoke ill of her. So what do we make of all of this?
Christina, I'm not surprised. And we previously talked about Thomas and Samantha's cases against Meghan. And when you're looking at defamation, right, it has to be a statement about a person. It's got to be published. It has to be untrue. But really what we're dealing with here is a statement of opinion. If you have an opinion, that usually can't be defamatory. And here what we're talking about is Meghan made two statements. That one, she grew up as an only child. Even though she had a half-sister, they didn't really have much of a relationship. She hadn't seen her for many, many years. So, the judge said, well, that's her opinion about her childhood and her upbringing. Right. That's not defamatory. And then the other statement was that Samantha changed her last name to basically benefit from Meghan's celebrity status. And again, the judge said, well, that's not enough to be defamatory. The judge gave Samantha an opportunity to amend her lawsuit, really clarify or really specify what was defamatory. And when Samantha was unable to do so, the case was dismissed. Now, Samantha wants to appeal. She can go to the Court of Appeal, but it doesn't strike me as a strong defamation case, Christina.
Right. Now, this is the third time that she has tried to bring this case forward. Do you feel like she's going to do it again, or is this, 3 strikes, you're out?
I mean, she's out. So this is what we call a demur in federal court, which is where this is a 12B6 motion. But it's really a motion to dismiss. And the judge says, even if everything you say is true, as a matter of law, it's not defamation. You don't have a case. It can't go to a jury. So the judge ruled that as a matter of law, Samantha has no case. And the case was dismissed with prejudice, which means it can't be amended. It can't be refiled. So all Samantha can do is appeal if she wants to move forward.
All right, we are moving on to Kim Zolciak and Biermann. I feel like we haven't talked about them in a minute. It's been a while. So they have to fork up even more cash in their divorce. So this time they are actually paying for someone to come by and see if they are fit parents. So TMZ reported that the exes were recently appointed a parent fitness evaluator who will monitor the former couple and their 4 minor children. The evaluator's services include interviewing Kim and Kroy and their kids, home visits, observing them with their children, potential school observation, and consulting with professionals who have worked with the family. So is this normal in family law? I mean, maybe not so normal, but, in this case, does it seem like the logical next step?
Christina, it's not normal in family law, but this isn't a normal family law case. And obviously, we've been talking about Kim and Kroy on Legally Us for quite some time. And it's really surprising that they haven't gotten in some legal trouble over the past few months. But there's been a lot of law enforcement contacts. They've had to come to the home, and there's been all sorts of allegations of abuse. So in any case involving children, the standard is always what is the best interest of the child. And normally when you think of family law, you're thinking of alimony or child support or custody, right, between the parents. But the issue here is there some domestic violence or some other toxic situation that make Kim and Kroy unfit parents, or make it so the children are better off someplace else with a relative, in foster care, or maybe even adoption? Now, I'm not saying we've gotten that far, but if you're the judge in the family law case, you got to start asking these questions that, are the kids going to be safe here? And that's what this independent evaluator, that's his or her job, to make sure that the kids are going to be okay if there is some sort of joint custody agreement between Kim and Kroy.
So the judge probably ruled this because of the evidence that they've seen so far. Like you said, the domestic violence, the calls to the police. So it seems like this is definitely raising a lot of red flags for them.
Absolutely. And, obviously domestic violence is something very serious. It not just affects the spouse that's being abused or the cohabitant or the partner or whatever. It
Mhm.
affects the children, even if they're not being physically struck. Just being in that environment is really damaging emotionally and psychologically for kids. So I think the judge is doing the right thing, making sure that everything's going to be okay, if he or she approves some sort of joint custody arrangement.
And how long does this evaluation usually go on for?
It just depends on how long the individual needs to get all the information, right? You have multiple kids here. You want to make sure that you observe them in the home, at school. You start asking questions, right? So it might be something where, if you interview the children, you observe them, you ask questions of the teachers and anyone else that has interaction with the children, then maybe after a few days, you know that everything's going to be okay. But if there are red flags and if the children do raise concerns or other adults that have contacts with the children are raising concerns, then the investigation has to continue. And ultimately, there's always the possibility that a dependency case is filed, and that's when social workers come and they take the kid. Now, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen here, but the investigation will go as long as it needs to for the judge to be certain that those kids are going to be safe.
All right, Neama, thank you for breaking it all down, as always.
Thanks, Christina. I'll see you next week.
See you next week.
For more news content and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.